Howdy Commanders, Echo here. The Transformers have arrived. The robots are in disguise. They've taken on the identities of several of the ships in the game. The crossover event is here and it's time to check it out. We're going to take an in-depth look at some of the things that are available in the store and take a deep dive into the Commanders. So let's roll out. So we'll first do a quick overview of the store setup here. We've got various bundles as we are in the special tab of the store. For basically $100, you can just guarantee buy all of it here. You get special flags, and these special flags can be mounted to any ship in the game. Doesn't matter, American, German, Soviet, doesn't matter. They function just like any other flag. I say that in particular because all of the various camos for the 4 specific ships also come with a built-in flag on a separate kind of slot on the ship design or skin. So you could like run a double flag of the same thing. So like let's say if you had Iowa, this Transformers skin mounted to it, that would have an Autobots flag on it, and then in your flag spot in your loadout of your Iowa, you could mount the Autobots flag and have a double Autobots flag if you think that's cool, or you could mount one of your other flags and have kind of a dual setup, but that would only apply for this specific skin, and obviously that's for the Fletcher, the Bismarck, and the Tashkent as well. In this bundle, you'd also get all 4 commanders, and you'd get 20 each of these consumable camos. You'd also get some missions here. These are just for patch components, both backgrounds and main patch components. Or for roughly half that, you could get just the Autobots or just the Decepticons bundles. And it's basically, you know, this large bundle, but just cut in half for the 2 various factions. Now, whether you think, you know, basically $100 for a bunch of skins, both consumable and premium permanent, and some flags and patch components, or, you know, $50 for half of that for one faction or the other is worth your money, that's a call you're going to have to make. A little to the right of those bundles, you've got the 4 commanders on their own with the permanent skin for their unique ship. So Optimus Prime with Iowa, Bumblebee with Fletcher, Megatron with Bismarck, and Rumble with Tashkent. If you're the gambling type, you could buy this one-off kind of multi-pack container, various chances to get a ton of different things. Check out wowslegends.com/containers for the various percentage chances there. But this one also does guarantee the patch component missions. If you buy this 750 doubloon bundle, it says 4 rewards, so you would get mission for each of the 2 backgrounds and each of the 2 main patch components. If you're into, you know, running one of these Transformer patches, might be a fairly decent value. Plus you got, you know, one pull of the lever, if you will, on the slot machine to maybe pull a commander, pull a premium skin, or pull some of the consumable camos. If your Gamblers Anonymous meetings haven't been going on because of COVID-19, you could always try pulling the lever a bunch of times over here with just the crates, no guaranteed patch component missions. Have at it, Haas, if that's your thing. But where I think the real meat and potatoes of this content comes into play here, crates and skins aside, is in these 4 commanders. Each of them is available for 5,000 doubloons each. You can just come right into the store, buy them straight up. This is the same thing we saw during the Halloween week of the birthday celebration update cycle, where you could come in and buy each of the Halloween commanders guaranteed, know what you're buying, for 5,000 doubloons each. We'll go into each one of these guys in detail, let you, make a choice for yourself whether or not you think 5,000 doubloons for one of these guys is worth it. But it is great to see that Wargaming is just offering these guys right up front. Hey, put this much gold down. You know what you're getting, guaranteed. None of this gambling, risk it for the biscuit type of nonsense we saw with the Azure Lane. Roll the dice, pull the lever, see what you get. So I do appreciate that they are just offering these commanders straight up, much like they had with the Halloween commanders during the birthday update. First, we'll take a look here at Optimus Prime. He's an American battleship commander. His base trait is Reconstructor. It goes up by 0.3% per level, reducing your repair party reload time on that heal there. And that tops out at 6% when he's 16 Legendary 4. Sounds okay at first, but when you really consider the fact that the Americans have a bog standard 80-second reload time on their heal or repair party, that drops it from that 80 seconds to 75.2 seconds when he's maxed out. So you're at best not even getting quite 5 whole seconds worth of benefit out of this, and that's again after you've dumped a ton of blue XP, POs, insignias, and commendations into this guy. At best, you're getting not even quite 5 seconds worth of reload time on your heal. Is that really ever going to be the difference that makes a difference? Maybe here and there in the odd game where you need to get the heal off. Personally, I don't think this base trait brings a whole lot to the table for the American battleships, or especially as an inspiration. I think the opportunity cost would be too great. Don't really see this being a terribly great base trait. Sure, it's nice to have when he's kind of mid to upper level. You're shaving a couple of seconds off the reload time on your heal, but ultimately it's not that powerful, not that great or worthwhile of a base trait. And to buy Optimus Prime exclusively for like slotting in as an inspiration, I can't really see in the current meta much of a use for that. We'll take a look at the rest of his skills over here as well. He's kind of a bog standard Lee brawler survivability build for the Americans. If you like Lee as a build on your Americans, you know, he might be worth considering in that regard. Personally, I think his base trait's probably better than Lee. So if you're into running Lee on your American battleships over Sims, might be worth picking up for that. His unique trait, Revocation Protocol, is not completely unique, and we'll get into that a little bit more in a moment, but Revocation Protocol here reduces your fire duration and your spotter reload time by 5% on the fire duration and 10% on the spotter reload. And that goes up by 5, 10, 15, and 20% for the fire duration. And the spotter plane cooldown reload is 10, 16, 23, and 30 at your various levels of mastery. A couple special notes I want to make on Revocation Protocol. Do note that this is only for the spotter plane reload. This does not apply to the fighter plane reload time. So if you're running a fighter plane on your American battleships, the second part here of Revocation Protocol will have absolutely no impact. That fighter catapult, fighter plane, whatever you want to call it, the cooldown time on that will not be affected by the effects of Revocation Protocol. Additionally, sort of tying into that, this will not stack with any impacts you're getting from Arthas the Cold from the Warhammer 40k. Since his trait affects only the catapult fighter components, this Revocation Protocol, since again this only affects spotter plane, will not stack, and those two things will not influence each other in any way. This is a halfway decent, unique skill, quote unquote unique. You know, reducing fire duration, pretty decent. Now, personally, I think that would have been better stacked with a flammable cannoneer, but that's also in slot 1, so you could only choose one or the other. Difficult to say, but overall, reducing fire duration in the current meta is always great. Stack this with like a Sheer or Azure Lane Hipper or something like that. Inspiration could be a pretty decent fire reduction type of counter meta build, if you will. The ability to, you know, have an extra heal and make it a little bit better, make it cool down a little bit quicker so you can get on to the next one, and then also stack that in an event commander with Will to Rebuild, not half bad. Makes you a pretty survivable battleship for the American line. Next, we'll take a look at Bumblebee. He's an American destroyer commander. His base trait Overboost grants a bump to your engine boost consumable duration. This goes up by 1% per level of mastery, topping out at 20% bump to your engine boost consumable duration. This is huge. We talked about this just a couple of days ago in the Case for Kedrov video. Check that out if you haven't seen it. But a 20% boost to a skill when a whole host of other base traits are operating in that kind of 4 to 6% range. Almost everybody is in that range, with a couple exceptions, here being another one. When you're looking at a 20% boost to the duration of the engine boost, that's huge. And it's going up 1% per level of mastery. So every time you put blue XP, POs, insignia, etc. into this guy, you're getting more benefit out of him at each level compared to a lot of other commanders' base traits. Now, is the duration to engine boost terribly useful? It can be. You know, when you're looking at the standard quote-unquote engine boost for things like the American destroyers, which Bumblebee would be on, pretty much all other destroyers, etc., that engine boost with a 20% bump. Now keep in mind that would be with him at 16 Legendary 4, but that would grant a 24-second increase to that quote standard reload boost duration, which is normally 120 seconds. So you'd be looking at 144-second duration on a quote standard length speed boost. Now if you were to slap a fully leveled Bumblebee onto a French cruiser commander who have 180-second duration on their speed boosts, you're looking at a 36-second increase on those French speed boost durations for those cruisers, which would be huge. I mean, a 30-second increase to an already extremely long speed boost. You'd be basically playing half the freaking game under speed boost on those French cruisers. Personally, I think some ships benefit more or less from speed boost. Take that for what you will, but it could be an interesting option, could be an interesting build setup, speccing into speed boost to either, you know, really maximize already speedy boats, or to kind of shore up weaknesses on slower boats that really need their speed boost active to be competitive. If we look at the rest of his skills over here, he's a pretty bog standard, you know, Halsey, quote unquote, observant rage, twist and track build. Nothing super special there. Of note, he, as an event commander, still gets access to Unstoppable. First time we've seen that. Much like how Optimus had access to Will to Rebuild, Bumblebee's got access to Unstoppable. First time we're seeing this out of event commanders. Taking a look at his quote-unquote unique trait calculated inversion here. This is a fairly multifaceted skill. It reduces the rudder shift time and increases your engine power or acceleration while the smoke generator consumable is active, while you're blooming or puffing that smoke out. Not while your smoke is sitting on the water, only while the consumable is, you know, kind of burning down with that green overlay kind of ticking from the top to the bottom of that little box. It also, as a nerf, decreases that dispersion time. And remember that the dispersion time is the time that it lingers on the water. So it's not affecting the duration of the blooms or the puffs, only the duration of it sitting on the water, which for the Americans is already the longest in the game. And this nerf stays static at 30%. So on the base duration of the Americans, 240-second dispersion or dwell time, that cuts that down to 168 seconds with that static 30% nerf. Now your boosts to your rudder shift time and your engine acceleration do change as you level up Bumblebee. And they go from 40% here at base mastery, 50, 60, and 70% for both the rudder shift and the engine power or acceleration. Keep in mind that this calculated inversion is in slot 4, so to reach that maximum level of benefit out of this, Bumblebee has to be completely 100% fully maxed out level at 16 Legendary 4. With Optimus, his unique trait, Revocation Protocol, was in slot 1. Very easy to max that out. Only takes level 11 Legendary 1. So that's not terribly difficult to max out and get the premium benefit out of that. Whereas Bumblebee is being in slot 4, you've got to crank him all the way up to 16 Legendary 4. Not sure if most of us would ever even see that being worthwhile and ever see him at 16 Legendary 4 when we keep getting new event commanders, keep getting new nations, keep getting new lines introduced that make other commanders relevant now. So take that for what you will. Not sure if you'd ever really see that 70% benefit to the rudder shift and engine acceleration. Overall on Bumblebee, you know, if you like Halsey on the American destroyers, but you think that AP damage isn't as worthwhile as an engine boost duration, I could see Bumblebee, you know, being worth your while. This could, as we mentioned, potentially be a halfway decent inspiration, depending on what you're going for with your builds. Next, we'll take a look at Megatron. He's a battleship commander for the Germans. His base trait, Cyber Lens, grants a plus 3% range buff to your battleship main battery guns per level of mastery, topping out, of course, at 6%. Now, some of you might think out there, ugh, top up my German battleship main battery range? Why would I possibly want to do that? They can't hit anything beyond like 2.5 kilometers anyway, so this is a stupid base trait. Well, consider the fact that he has Brawler, like Celiax, which has a main battery range nerf to your battleships, which tops out at 10%. He's at 11 Legendary 1, slot skill 1 is maxed out, mastery 4 of 4. You know, if you got this to that close to 6%, you're basically offsetting half or slightly over half of the nerf from Brawler. That isn't too bad. To get the benefits of Brawler, cut its nerf in half with his base trait. You know, that way your blue ring isn't sitting outside of your white ring, which can happen sometimes for people taking Brawler perk. Yeah, when you can at least get those to be evenly matched, I'd say that's a pretty decent win. Also consider the usefulness of this as an inspiration. If my number crunching was correct, this means that with a maxed out Sims build, triple combat flag, reaching out, stacking this on top of that, you can get the Alabama to reach out over 21 kilometers, I think, or just shy of it, like 20.8, 20.9, depending on what number these percentages are working off of. I think it works off of the initial base range, and they don't stack with each other. I think that's how it works, and if it is, that means you can get the Alabama to like 20.8, 20.9, maybe 21, depending on how the game rounds each one of those and adds them up. As if we need that. One of the most accurate battleships in the game can now basically cover the entirety of any map it's ever going to be on. Great. So for those of you that love Alabama and love a flammable cannoneer Sims build with a maxed out range capability, hey, Cyber Lens might not be bad. This plus a Cunningham, you're going to be sniping people that have absolutely no chance of fighting back. So keep that in mind as a trait for Megatron. As we mentioned, he is a sort of brawler Celiax build for the Germans, so if you like running Celiax and prefer him on your German battleships, considering Megatron might not be a bad way to go. He's literally got all the same skills, Master Mechanic, Brawler, you know, Will to Rebuild and Legendary slot, so not half bad if you like Celiax on your German battleships. Now, as you may have noticed on Optimus, I was saying quote-unquote unique skill. That's because Megatron also has Revocation Protocol. So the two battleship commanders we got from this Transformers event both have the same mostly unique skill here. So stats go up just the same. Fire duration reduction is 5, 10, 15, and 20%. Spotter plane Reload is 10, 16, 23, and 30. Same effects there. Same considerations as we talked about with Optimus. Now, for those of you who have been looking at the 7 charges of the spotter plane on the Große Kurfürst and wondering, why would I ever need 7 spotter planes? I can't possibly use them. How is that ever going to come into play? Well, consider that if you're running a Megatron with at least level 11, Legendary 1, making Revocation Protocol maxed out, you're running a combat flag that reduces your consumable reload time, and you could even slot in a high-level Togo Haihachiro, who reduces the reload time of all consumables, which would obviously include spotter plane. Let's also throw in the fact that every once in a while some of those planes get shot down, so the reload time starts a little prematurely. You can actually get all 7 spotter planes off in a 15-minute game with all of those things in play. Now, to be fair, who's going to run a Togo Haihachiro inspiration on a German battleship commander just to maybe be able to get off 1 or 2 more spotter planes? Probably nobody. But with all of those things in play, it is actually possible to run through and use all 7 of those spotter planes in a full 15-minute game on the Große Kurfürst. You do have to get a couple of them shot down prematurely, to be fair, but when you're throwing 7 of them up during the course of a game, at least a couple of them are probably going to get shot down, right? So just consider that. That's why the devs probably put 7 on the GK, is because they were anticipating Megatron coming in with this skill. Personally, I think that could actually be useful, even without running a Togo and without having a couple of them get shot down. You are going to get access to a couple more of those spotter planes just by running Revocation Protocol maxed out, 30% reduction to the cooldown. So running a GK that you can put an extra 2, 3, maybe even 4 spotter planes up in the air during the course of a full 15-minute game, stacking that with reduced fire duration on the GK. Hey, not telling you how to build your ships on this video too much, but something to consider if you take the GK out on the high seas with some regularity. Lastly, we'll take a look at Rumble. He's a Soviet destroyer commander. He's got the glass cannon build setup, similar to the build setups you'd see on Gurren, Vian, Burke, and Voilette. His base trait is Robotic Breadth. This grants a range buff to your destroyer main batteries of 0.3% per level of mastery, topping out at, of course, 6% when he's 16 Legendary 4. Consider the fact that when he is max level, that is double the impact of a triple combat booster flag, triple chevron booster combat flag. So that is a pretty significant impact on the range of your destroyer main batteries, especially for the Soviets. If you prefer running a Gurren glass cannon build on your Soviet destroyers, and you think that giving up the, AP penetration capabilities in exchange for a little bit more range to be able to reach out and actually hit some targets, I would strongly consider Rumble if that's your bag and you like to play Tashkent, Leningrad, Okhotnik, Gremyashi. Those are the only Soviet destroyers really worth playing, I think. But if you're crazy and like Minsk, check yourself into a hospital. But, he'd even be good on that boat, I think. Rumble also has calculated inversion, just like Bumblebee. Again, that's why I was saying, quote-unquote, unique trait. He's got the same exact unique trait. It's in slot 4, so again, to max it out, you've got to be 16 Legendary 4, unlike the 2 Battleship commanders we're getting from this crossover event, whose unique traits are in slot 1, making them 11 Legendary 1 for maxing out. Personally, I don't think nerfing the duration of a Soviet smokescreen is worth the minor bit of help you're going to get to your maneuverability while you're deploying it for the Soviets. it just tactically doesn't make any sense, especially when you also consider that you'd have to be giving up sidestep, which on a glass cannon build is one of your bread and butter skills that makes the build really worthwhile, and for the Soviets, worth taking over Trubetskoy, and giving up things like Observant Rage and Twist and Track. If you're not running sidestep, it just kind of makes the build fall apart. So I personally don't think having calculated inversion on Rumble is worth a darn, and if I were running Rumble on the Soviet destroyers, I definitely wouldn't be running calculated inversion. He's got access to Unstoppable. He's got a halfway decent base trait for both himself, or maybe you didn't want to run Rumble because you don't like the glass cannon build for the Soviets, you prefer Trubetskoy. Well, having Trubetskoy with better range, that's going to help you out a lot. Stack that with like a Burke inspiration or a Vian inspiration to either make you more accurate at that extreme range or make you less likely to get hit from the incoming fire at that long range. Either one of those stacking with this would be great. I've been saying basically since the Soviet destroyers came out in early access almost 6 months ago that in order to really fill their role of a sort of cruiser without a citadel type of gunnery support type of role, they're not really great at contesting caps. They can't torpedo except for the premiums plus the Tashkent. So in order to really fill the role that they're sort of trying to fill, they need like 5, 7, maybe 10, 12% more main battery range. Well, here you go. You're getting it baked right in if you want to run Rumble on the Soviet DDs or use them as an inspiration for Trubetskoy or Gurin. And there are other lines in the game that could also benefit from this. British DDs would like this. French DDs would like this. If we get Japanese gunboats, they'll probably like this. Probably wouldn't use it too much on the Germans or the Americans, but many of the lines I could see being a viable build with robotic breadth as an inspiration slot for those commanders on those other nations' DD lines. Well, I hope you've enjoyed and appreciated that in-depth look at the Transformers crossover event content that we've got coming out today. It is available till October 8th, so feel free to use this information, mull it over, chew on it overnight maybe, and make your decisions whether you want to spend your hard-earned money or not. I do want to close this down with a couple final thoughts. Number one, Commanders, keep in mind that this is an arcade game. Legends is in no way a simulator. Crossover events like this help keep the servers on. I'm sure already you've seen people out there with the permanent skins. Maybe you've gotten them yourself. You're seeing the impacts of some of these commanders on the commanders around you, so just keep that in mind. If the Atlanta were shooting its guns on cooldown every 5 seconds for 15 straight minutes, in real life, the barrels would melt. This is an arcade game, guys. Don't get too bent out of shape about having some commanders from a fairly popular IP crossing over. It brings new players into the game. It brings players back who may have stopped playing. And most importantly, it keeps the servers on, keeps the lights on at Wargaming, keeps those guys on payroll, and maybe they can even hire some more people. They are a business. They are a company. We live in a capitalist society. Take that for what you will. These crossover events help Wargaming, help the Legends team, and inject cash flow into them so they can keep bringing us content, a new update patch every 5 weeks. Secondly, I want to make the point that more commanders in the game, so long as they are balanced, which these 4 strike me as fairly balanced, more commanders make the game better. It's more variety, more options. Those of you that have been around for a long time, when the game was back in early access Founders Edition and there were a very finite number of commander options, it just wasn't as diverse, as fun, as intricate of a game. And that meta game of commanders, every time you go back to port thinking about your build, is part of the fun of Legends. And having more commanders in the game gives a greater diversity of options for you to use and makes the counterplay a little more dynamic and a little more intricate, making it a more fun and engaging experience. And the last point I want to make is a little bit more for Wargaming. If anybody on the team is listening, I do understand that COVID has been hitting us now for over half a year, and it is slowing things down. So do consider that I'm, trying to temper this following piece of commentary with that fact. But I can't help but notice that a little bit of this Transformers crossover does feel kind of a little copy-pasty. Hesitate to use the word lazy. But when the two battleship commanders and then the two destroyer commanders share the same quote-unquote unique trait, I understand you don't want to introduce too many things too rapidly for the sake of balance. We also had 4 new commanders come out for the Italians in the same update. I get it. 8 whole commanders all at once within the same 5-week period can do a lot to the meta, especially when you consider changes to the legendary skills also coming in the same update patch. I understand that that's a lot, but I don't know. Either give them all 4 unique unique skills in their, skill trees, or just don't have them have unique skills. For the fact that all the rest of their skills are literally just like copy paste of the other, various glass cannon, brawler, observant rage / twist and track builds. And then it's just like, slap on a unique skill, and it's not more of the kind of hybrids like we've seen from the Halloweens and the Azure Lanes and the Warhammer 40k crossovers. It does start to feel a little kind of not quite as, shall we say, innovative of the content that we've gotten from previous crossovers. And one last question that I don't really understand is why 2 of the Transformers are US, and then we got 1 German and 1 Soviet. Now, why wouldn't we get like 2 US and 2 German, or like a US, a Brit, and a German and a Soviet? It just seems kind of weird that 2 of them from the same faction are for one nation in the game, and then the other 2 from the other faction are split up among other nations. It just seems a little bit weird to me from, an overall meta and game design standpoint. If there's somebody out there from the team that can answer that question in the comments, that'd be great. For all the rest of you commanders out there, let me know in the comments below what you think of this Transformers crossover. Which, if any of these commanders, are you thinking about picking up? Thanks an awful lot for listening. I greatly appreciate it. And as always, stay salty, commanders.